Morning, everyone. Welcome to Thursday's Thought for the Day. Well, on Sunday after the service in which I led, a member of the congregation came up to me and said, "Oh, I wish my faith was as strong as yours." And my immediate internal response was, "If only you knew how I struggle sometimes." But my verbal response was to dilute that a little and say, well, we all have our times of struggling with our faith. And I was torn between giving a very personal response and that generic response that steers away from the personal. On the one hand, it was good that the conversation didn't become about me. It could have turned into the sort of conversation we've all experienced when one person tells another how wretched they're feeling in the hope that they'll meet some understanding, but only to be met by the other person telling them that they feel far more wretched than they do and proceeding to list all the things why, and then the conversation becomes all about them. And it's a balance to be had in terms of struggles with faith. Do we allow room for it to be talked about and responded to openly and honestly, or are we afraid that to do so would open doubts and wounds within ourselves that we'd rather not open up? And in that case, we can make responses that are the equivalent of a sticking plaster on a broken leg, and we can offer platitudes that really remove us from the situation and do little to really listen and engage with that person's struggle. Now, the person who spoke with me on Sunday attends church every week very, very faithfully and clearly has a faith. And I think what she was really saying to me, like the Father in Luke's Gospel was saying to Jesus when he said, "I believe, help me in my unbelief." My response could have been the beginning of a conversation, but it actually became the end of one because of my self-defined time constraints. I didn't allow room for an open and honest conversation. And you might say, well, or I might say, well, yeah, I can understand that, the context, it was just after the service, it wasn't an appropriate time and so on, but I felt an opportunity had gone. It's when someone speaks about a crisis of faith in any shape or form, we need to be quick to listen and slow to speak. Let's be wary of jumping to conclusions before we've heard the person out. Let's be wary of coming up with stock phrases and platitudes that we think will deal with the situation. We need to understand more. We need to understand the person's context. Someone who thinks they might have lost their faith or their faith isn't strong might mean that they're wrestling with something they can't resolve. And that could be personal suffering, or the suffering they see in the world, or parts in the Bible that they can't make sense of, or just a sense of the absence of God in their lives. Now, this is very different from someone who's come to a definitive conclusion that they're walking away from faith. We can all get stuck between our belief, we know that God exists and that He is good and that He loves us, and our unbelief. Underlying or overlying all that is God Himself. And if we can hold on to that, no matter how dry we feel, how broken we are, we can look to God and pray, "Help my unbelief." It might feel like an admission of guilt, like a statement that we've failed in some way, but actually to pray it is to say, I believe. We can't say that prayer unless we do believe. And if we've ever cried out to God, help me, we will have spoken that from a place of belief. And that's evidence of faith. If we are to respond to those who come to us and say, my faith is weak, or I'm not feeling it anymore, it's also important that we have an understanding of our own times of unbelief. What happens to us, where it comes from. And we need to do that if we are to go beyond the platitudes that don't touch the heart. We have to go deeper within ourselves, and that's not always comfortable, is it? But we have to go deeper within ourselves and actively listen to another struggle with faith and respond with a loving heart. And as I've said before, in this thought for the day and in many other thoughts for the day, we have to listen before speaking. We have to give time and space. We have to develop deeper relationships where people can safely declare both their faith and their doubts without fear. And most importantly, we have to be prayerful in our responses, always with the knowledge that it's not us who transforms, only God transforms. Amen. Well, I speak to you next Monday, and in the meantime, you look after yourselves and take care. God bless. Bye-bye.